Welcome. Thanks for tuning in today. This is Yaz.life and my name is Yaz. This is the 9th part of the Voices in Your Head series of videos. The link to this playlist is in the description below. And as always, I recommend you watch them so that you can catch up and keep up with the content in this particular video. A summary of what we've covered in this series so far includes a brief understanding of transactional analysis and ego states, how ego states work, how to distinguish between them, and what they look and sound like at their best and their worst. A breakdown of all the ego states, as you can see right here, and using analysis of our upbringing to understand how to determine our default states. So by this stage, we should be able to not only identify our default states, but also understand how they came to be, and which states we find easier to get on with and which are considerably more challenging. Using ego states in our relationships will enable us to understand each other better and communicate with each other in ways by which we will not only be listened to, but also heard. We will be able to identify whether the relationships we are having are healthy and whether they work with our default states or clash. Does that mean that you are putting energy into a relationship that technically is going to need this much energy, if not more, for the rest of your life? Being able to behave assertively depends on whether we have a healthy and grounded sense of self. A healthy and grounded sense of self can only be established when we have developed a healthy relationship with ourselves. When was the last time you asked yourself how you was feeling? Don't laugh, I'm serious. When was the last time you made a safe space for yourself? A space in which there was no judgment or criticism, in which there was responsibility, meaning that you had the ability to respond to your needs. This may sound strange, and you might be looking at me with an eyebrow raised, yet we have conversations with ourselves all of the bloody time. Are those conversations helpful to us, or are they making us feel exhausted and unworthy? This is not a philosophical discussion I'm having with you, I mean far from it. This is about the realization that when we develop and sustain a healthy relationship with ourselves, we will take our first step towards genuine fulfillment, peace of mind, gratification, all leading to contentment that really may only be had via substances or detrimental habits, in many cases even addictions. So at this point, we have identified our default states. From my example in the last video, those states were critical parent when in position of authority, adapted child with those that had authority over me, and free child whenever I could let my hair down. Now, an important point to mention here is that those were my default states prior to the onset of my journey of personal development. I'm not saying that because it sounds all catchy and fluffy. It's the truth. This was Yaz before she had become a psychotherapist and before she had done the work that she has done. My answers to the forthcoming questions are going to be based on me now, which is more in the middle of my journey of personal reflection, understanding and growth. Now I can choose the states of mind I use rather than my triggers and my past choosing them for me. An example would be critical parent is no longer my default and I do not choose it either. I don't because I have always found other states that are more useful than critical parent, and critical parent is really not in line with my personal ethics and values. It's not the kind of person I want to be. I have also learned to become comfortable in nurturing parent. I had to work really hard on my patience for that one, and now have gotten it to a point where it's as easy as though it was one of my default states of mind. Likewise, I find adapted child is becoming more and more obsolete in my everyday life. I mean, I'm self-employed and so no manager to test that with, but my mum, who was my ultimate trigger, I am no longer in adapted child with. Haven't been for years. Now my most comfortable states around both my parents are free child, nurturing parent, and adult. So how do we look at our default states and look at how we can choose different ones if we want to? To begin with, we're going to work with the relationship that matters to you the most. The one that you would like to work towards building on in healthier ways. The person that you really want to get on with better. That's who you're going to choose for this. Now, the example I will use to show you the process will be my relationship with my mum. I know, bless her, she comes up time and time again. Now, my relationship with my mum was very, very volatile after I started moving into rebellious child more and more. Prior to that, we actually got on really well. Now, this was a relationship I had near enough written off, as we argued so much that it was becoming impossible just to be pleasant around each other, let alone actually get on with each other. Where to begin? So, the first thing that I had to do was to identify which states of mind were playing the biggest parts in our conflicts. So, my mum's critical parent would kick off my rebellious child, and vice versa. Now, remember, personal development is about taking responsibility for oneself and for one's feelings. This means I cannot start pointing the finger at my mum, telling her that her critical parent really needs to change and that she's kicking my rebellious child off. No. It's about me choosing what I will or will not do in this relationship. So in this case, I want to work on it, and so I am going to be responsible for that. Meaning I'm going to be responsible for working with my rebellious child and the triggers that were being kicked off. How does one do this, you may ask? Well, I had to observe exactly what thoughts I was having just before and during our arguments, and then becoming intimately acquainted with them, which was my rebellious child's state of mind, and the triggers that were being set off. Now, bear in mind that my rebellious child's state of mind is me. It's not some stranger, it's me when I was a teenager rebelling. And that state of mind will be with me forever. So it's not about getting rid of it, replacing it, or shutting it down. It's actually the opposite. It's about meeting the emotional needs that were not being met. By doing this, I will lessen the sensitivity of my triggers, resulting in a lesser need to rebel. And that's the aim of the game, isn't it? After this, I can choose which state of mind will be more helpful for me, bearing in mind my goal is to improve my relationship with my mum. So, I know that the only state of mind that works well with critical parent is adult, so now I'm going to have to go off and work pretty hard at that one. The adult state of mind is a very matter-of-fact place to be, somewhere I really was not familiar with being. I also had very low confidence, and so that made this state of mind for me really, really challenging. In order for me to be able to work within the adult state of mind, I would need to have developed a healthier relationship with myself. One by which I was comfortable in my own skin, comfortable with vulnerability, and even more comfortable with imperfection. This is not something we can establish overnight, as I think you've realised. It really does take a great deal of love, respect, and knowledge for ourselves to move into such an assertive and empowering place. I will cover this in a lot more detail in later videos because, wow, there is so much information here. Now, I was able to move into free child more often, which my mum loved, as I know, as she loves to be made to laugh, and I was able to move into nurturing parent. Now, this was not only due to my line of work and practicing being there, but also by asking my mum tons and tons of questions about her upbringing, and then using this knowledge that I had acquired to understand her reactions, and ultimately becoming more and more empathic towards her and why she did what she did. All in all, my mum and I now get on like a blinking house on fire. We have a great laugh, yet I understand her on a more intimate level. We don't argue anymore, touch wood. Why? Because my rebellious child is no longer angry, as she has been understood. Understood not by my mum, but by me. Part 10 will show you a breakdown of exactly how I did that. What now? Now, tons of information, so your brains are probably seeping out of your ears. What you can do is go off and choose the relationship you want to work on. Choose that person, the person that you really want to start getting on with. Identify their default states and then analyze that according to your default states. Which states of mind, thoughts and feelings are being triggered for you? Which ones are they in that are triggering them off for you? Which states of mind do you need to work with regarding meeting your emotional needs and reducing the sensitivity of your triggers? Use all the videos in this series to check which states of mind work well together and to help you choose your plan of action. In the next video, we'll run through exactly how you are going to do what you have planned to do. Finishing up, if you have found this video helpful and want to help me create more, then please do spare a minute and pop on over to patreon.com. If you've got any questions, opinions or experiences that you would like to share, then please do pop them in the comments section below. Part 10 of the Voices in Your Head will be coming soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and press that bell button so you don't miss a thing.